We'll be going with the fourth unit, that is exception handling, input and output files in Java, and the stream classes of the Java. And lastly, we'll be completing with the multi-threading in Java. This is also very important unit of your Java class. Hence, these all the days you have seen the very important topics of the Java, and they will be used in your coming days. Okay. So today I'll be defining what actually meant by an exception handling and what actually it is going to do. What are the different types of advantages you are going to have, and when actually the exception handling occurs, we shall see. Before going with the statements which are written in the PPT, just I wanted to say some words. Exception means it is an abnormal problem, or wherein which your program is not going to execute in a correct way, or you'll be getting an infinite loop, or if you are going to have an unstopped execution of your program. Those all the things are nothing but called as what? An exceptions. Errors are means you can have a sense of solving the errors, but when it comes in a form of exception means there exists with unstoppable problems which could not be unstoppable. They are called as an exceptions. Okay, they are particularly called as an exceptions. Then how these exceptions can be handled, or how actually these exceptions can be converted to abnormal to the normal execution or a flow of applications, we shall see one by one. Okay, the exception handling is in a Java is one of the powerful mechanism to handle the runtime errors, so that normal flow of the applications can be maintained. What is going to say, when your program enters into the runtime errors, and runtime errors are nothing but called as I already said, they are abnormal execution of a program. To convert those all the abnormal errors, abnormal flow to the normal flow, we are going to use with the exception handling mechanism. Then what is called as an exception handling? Exception handling is a mechanism to handle the runtime errors such as class not found exception, IO exception, SQL exception, and remote exceptions. So these are the different classes defined within an exception class. There are the different classes used to define the exceptions. To redefine those all these sections, we are going to use with exception handling. Okay, the exception handling is a part where the class not found exception, IO exception, and SQL exception, remote exception, and each and everything can be handled by defining those all the things by using exceptions as a class statement, as a class statement. Okay, so exception, when it occurs in a form of abnormal to be converted to be handled in a form of normal way, we are going to use with exceptions. So from these two statements, what you can understand, from these two statements we can understand that when the program enters into the runtime problems abnormal way to be converted to normal way, we are going to use with exception handling. What is the advantage of your exception handling? We shall see. The core advantage of exception handling is to maintain the normal flow of the application. The main important is when the program enters into the abnormal form, that abnormal form can be converted to normal form defining with the exceptions classes. An exception normally disrupts the normal flow of application. That is why we use exception handling. Once again, he is going to say here. So has been given a simple statements when and how an exception is going to be defined or been executed. So we have been executed 10 different types of statements with statement 1 to statement 10, and within a comment line I have written as exception occurs. Why it is going to occur there, we shall check with some statements here. Suppose there are 10 statements in your program and there occurs an exception at the statement 5, so the rest of code will not be executed, that is statement 6 to 10 will not be executed. If we perform exception handling, the rest of the statements will be executed. That is why we use exception handling in Java. So unexpected errors are nothing but called as an exceptions. In another word I can say, so at the time when you are executing 10 statements and suddenly or at any most of the level you are going to define with or been defined with a statement that is statement number 5 is having problem, then ultimately what it is going to do, your normal flow enters into the abnormal, because rest other 6 to 10 statements should be executed. If they are not executed, means what, you have been entered into the exceptions, so for that particular purpose we are going to handle this particular situation by defining with your exception handling. How it is, we shall see with the hierarchies or the different types of exceptions found within the Java lang exception class. All exception classes are subtypes of the subtypes, means defined within already present exception class. The exception subclass is a subclass of a throwable class. Exception is a part of your throwable class. Other than the exception class, there is another subclass called error, which is derived from the throwable class. Okay, errors are abnormal conditions that happen in case of severe failures. These are not handled by the Java programs. Errors means you can get with compile time error, syntax errors can be solved very easily. There is no any problem, because at the time of execution of the program itself we are going to redefine all the statements without having any conversations. Is it right or not? So for that sake, when our programs are being defined with an abnormal conditions, and if they enters into the severe failures, means where your program is not at all giving the correct result what you are been expecting from that program, at that time Java could not handle these all the situations. So errors are generated to indicate by the runtime environment. For example, JVM is out of memory. Normally programs cannot recover from errors. So has been given simple example. JVM is out of memory, means it is having certain limited storage of memory within itself when the programs are executing, because it is a medium, as already said in the first unit. JVM is a medium where it is going to converge your programs with this OS or a system compiler to execute in correct way. Okay, at that time if it is out of memory, then ultimately it becomes one of the severe problem where your program could not be executed, and this particular statements will be coming at the time of execution of a program. So he has been defined with two different subclasses here. First of the Java lang will be called through the object from the throwable class. Okay, so throwable class will call the object of a lang. It can be divided in a form of normal errors as well as exceptions, and exceptions are subdivided into runtime exception and other exceptions. Okay, so throwable class will define with the object. That object will be calling the java.lang. Okay, java.lang package will redefine with the object of class called as throwable, where it is divided into two parts. One is called as error, another one is called as exceptions. Already have seen these all the things. The exceptions we are going to see one by one, the different types of exceptions. Today I'll be going with this particular slide. If time remains, we'll be going with next other things. There are mainly two types of exceptions called as checked and unchecked. Here, an error is considered as an unchecked exception also. According to the Oracle, there are three types of exceptions. One is called as checked exception, another one is called as unchecked exceptions. So, the checked exception, what it is going to say here? The classes which directly inherit a throwable class except runtime exception and error are called as checked exceptions. Means without having any interference with the runtime exception as well as error, we are going to call them as checked exceptions. Means directly they will be inheriting the throwable class like IO exception, SQL exception, etc. Checked exceptions are checked at the time of compile time. So checked exceptions are those things which are used to be checked at the time of compilation of a program when you are running that particular program. Okay, so that is nothing but called as what, and that nothing but called as an what, checked exception. Unchecked exceptions which are going to inherit at the time of runtime. Runtime means when at the time of execution of a program. Okay, and errors are those irrecoverable. Irrecoverable means out of memory error, virtual machine error, assertion error. So what you can understand from these all the three different types of exceptions? Actually, exception they will be defining two. One is called as checked exceptions and another one is called as unchecked. Checked defines when you are writing the program at that time. If you are going to find with at the time of compilation, you will be getting an error. We can call them as what, checked. Means it will be checking each and everything very strictly, and then afterwards it will be making there is no any error, there is no any exceptions for you. But in time, in the form of an unchecked exceptions, array index out of bonds exception, or you're going to have with null pointer assignment, arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception means infinity. When divided by 0 is one of the infinity where your program could not be stopped at any most of the level. So we are going to call them as what? An unchecked exceptions. Then error means irrecoverable. Recoverable means when your system itself is hanged, or when the memory is out of memory, or when your Java virtual machine is not working according to your sense, and when there is a problem in reading or writing through the keyboard. These all things are nothing but called as what, an errors. Okay, so I'll be stopping here itself. Or rest other things we will discuss tomorrow. Thank you very much.